Thank you. Welcome, everybody. So we originally planned this session before COVID had taken hold, before lockdown was even a thing. Luxury brands were focused increasingly on and investing in e-commerce and embracing their digital offerings. However, COVID and shutdown of traditional bricks and mortar retail and international travel and the devastation it has wrought across the luxury sector have brought the importance of e-commerce for luxury businesses into even sharper focus. The crisis has forced many luxury businesses to double down on their investment in e-commerce and digital channels. In this session, we will examine how this is playing out for luxury businesses and some of the current and longer-term challenges and opportunities. I'm joined for this session by three brilliant and illustrious panelists, and I'm now delighted to ask them to briefly introduce themselves. Can I start, please, with Touker Suleyman?
Hi, I'm Touker Suleyman. I'm a serial entrepreneur and a dragon on Dragon's Den.
Thank you, Touker. Dan?
I'm Dan Webster. I'm Group General Counsel for Harrods, where I have worked for about 15 years.
Thanks, Dan. And Sally?
Yeah, so I'm Sally Britton. I'm a partner at Mishcon. I'm co-lead of the retail group at Mishcon with you, Lewis, as you know, but also head of the brands group at Mishcon. So I help people identify and protect brand assets.
Wonderful. Thank you all. So let's dive straight in. As I just mentioned, COVID-19 and the UK lockdown has driven the luxury and wider retail sector towards a more digital offering. Dan, if I could ask you, what have been the main opportunities and challenges for Harrods?
Well, I mean, there was a trend towards online purchases of luxury products that has undoubtedly been accelerated by the pandemic. I mean, I think online sales as a proportion of luxury sales had increased from about 5% to about 12% even before the pandemic. And I think the expectation is that that's going to increase towards 30% in the next 5 years or so. But there has been, a substantial increase as everyone was at home, and this was the main way to purchase products. And we were pleased to see that an increase in luxury products, because that's not always the first thing that people think about in a lockdown type situation. The challenge for us was that we had relaunched Harrods.com with a completely new platform towards the end of February this year. So we had been operating that new platform for just a matter of weeks before we were faced with this unprecedented situation and a massive increase in demand for the platform. I'm very pleased to say that the platform met that challenge, but undoubtedly it was not anticipated. Of course, how could it have been?
So quite fortunate though in the timing to have relaunched it when you did.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting the point you make about businesses having to double down on online. And I think we obviously we didn't anticipate the pandemic, but we did anticipate the importance of online and digital for the future of luxury. And it turns out that the timing of that investment and partnership with Farfetch was very good.
Fantastic. Touker, what trends are you seeing in terms of brands adapting to e-commerce generally, but also as a result of the COVID situation and the current climate?
Well, I think the most important thing is that what COVID has done, it's highlighted a lot of companies and boardrooms to say, online is now the biggest part of any brand's business. I mean, in the case of Harrods, it might be different, but what we're seeing is it's the biggest shop. And like us, like everybody else, we're now looking at the investment that we're going to make in online, which then triggers off our store portfolio, where we say, do we need X amount of stores? Do we just need flagships? So rather than going from 25 stores down to 5, but having those 5 being flagship stores, that's a key element. The other element, of course, is product. And I think what COVID has taught us is that people are now dressing differently. There's a psychology towards dressing down, being more casual. And I think some of the luxury brands have already started doing that, making product sweatshirts look a bit more luxury and workwear being not as much. I think certain parts of luxury will suffer. Does somebody want to buy a bag online? What will be the impact of returns of luxury goods online? Whereas it's easier if the product is based upon leisure wear, shoe, they're easy things to return. So I think that online is definitely here to stay in luxury. It will grow. And I think more and more companies will invest a lot more in their infrastructure and perhaps start closing some stores.
Yes. Well, it's interesting. I mean, you say, and Dan also alluded to that about, you know, the changes that people are wearing. I'm wearing a shirt today. I don't think I'd normally, during lockdown, it's like one of the few occasions I've actually put on a shirt. Now, of course, you own Hawes and Curtis, and we've seen the, you know, the demise of TM Lewin, and I guess you touched on it, but Harrods obviously has a greater assortment. But how do luxury brands adapt really when they can't overnight change the products they made? I mean, we did see obviously some making PPE and the likes, but that's quite a challenge, isn't it?
Very much so. Look, I think in the likes of Harrods, that they can edit their product because they've got so much product. In likes of Hawes and Curtis, surprisingly enough, our online has sustained quite well. We're selling a lot more suits in the last week than we've ever done. So I'm hoping that people are starting to think about going back to work. I'm hoping that people are saying, oh, I put on too much weight, I've lost too much weight, I need to buy a new suit, I need to buy a new shirt. So that is what we're seeing in the last 10 days. So there is a few green shoots coming out in the shirts in the formal sector, but I would definitely say that we're talking about going more casual in the medium to long term.
Okay, and Sally, how have you seen your clients' approach to digital change during COVID?
Well, I think, you know, I mean, echoing some of the comments that we made already, I think many of them are already looking that way. I think this has just really accelerated the change, made some things happen perhaps more quickly than we expected. But certainly, you know, the interesting trends that, you know, we've seen coming through is clients with, you know, very strong propositions that are flexible and adaptable are able to perhaps shift more quickly to accommodate the trends. As you say, we've helped a number of people who've shifted to produce PPE, for example, but it's challenging. And I think the ones that have found it the most difficult are the ones that hadn't actually made the preparations and didn't have the groundwork in place beforehand, because one of the difficulties of COVID is reaching new people, but then that's also one of the opportunities with the internet. It's a very kind of global marketplace, but, you know, it has its own challenges too.
Absolutely, and it's not easy to change when you've got a big portfolio of retail stores around the country, around the world. It's not something you can immediately divest overnight. Thank you. So we've already touched on it. The retail sector, COVID-19 has accelerated a trend towards digital, and clearly we all think that's only going to continue, and it was clearly apparent before COVID. I think one of the challenges with e-commerce, particularly for luxury brands, has been to replicate their premium, exclusive, distinctive and personalized services. Although there are obvious examples like Farfetch and Net-a-Porter that have done aspects of this very well. Touker, what in your view do luxury brands need to do to succeed in e-commerce?
Well, I think first of all, look at their data, look at their customers, and try and be more customer focused. And if they do want to continue to give that personalized service, and is to actually get customers to make appointments with brands where you have a virtual shop where you're presenting your whole brand experience directly to an individual customer. I would imagine in some brands where a customer can come along and spend £20,000 in a couple of, it means nothing to them. So they're the customers that you need, looking at your data, looking at their spending patterns, you need to focus on and get Zoom working on a personalized basis where they can book an appointment. You've got somebody there that can explain the new collection, and even to the point where you've got mobile vans that can deliver the product while they're trying them on, collect them, a bit like how Net-a-Porter started. It's that personalized service that if somebody's spending over £500 or £1,000 on a product, they do want that special treatment. And I think brands, department stores will have to rethink about how do you personalize that service to individual customers from your database.
I think you set that up very nicely, because we can turn to Dan from Harrods and ask him, how are you trying to replicate that exclusivity in the digital environment and ensure that you're giving customers that Harrods-like experience online? I mean, can you provide personal shopping like Touker suggested in a digital environment?
I mean, first of all, I'd say, you know, it's really, really difficult to replicate the Harrods store experience digitally. Just sort of talking briefly about the relaunched website, I mean, there's an awful lot of effort that has gone into the way that conveying the luxury of the Harrods store experience digitally, visually, and by using very high quality photos and lots of elaborate editorial content that promotes services, restaurants, and various other services that aren't available online. So we're trying to make it a window into the whole Harrods experience, not just a marketplace for selling products. But in terms of sort of the wider digital engagement, I mean, we have a large personal shopping business, and although that is been focused on physically coming to the store and having a meeting during already. And more so now during this lockdown period, we have created what I would call a sort of a virtual concierge service, whereby we're engaging either by video conferencing or phone calls with our customers and able to display photos of products, or even physically walk around the store and try and engage with them that way. So also online, we're looking at doing sort of chatbots where we're able to track people's habit, moving around the website online and sort of engage with them and say, well, can we speak to you? Do you want to contact us and have a more personal engagement? So there's a number of things we're looking at.
So there is an increasing level of personalization and upping the experience. And do you think that's just a growing trend now for you?
Yeah.
And are you using digital marketing to try to get your customers back into the store?
Oh, yes. Yeah, we are. I mean, the short answer is yes.
Yeah.
I guess the biggest problem at the moment is tourism. Department stores like Harrods, Selfridges rely so much on tourists, and I would imagine that makes it more difficult to try and get people into store. And I would imagine, Dan, that most of your customers are international.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's just the international travel has dwindled to virtually zero, hasn't it? And a lot of the countries that we would like our customers to come from, there's currently quarantine issues as well. So even if they wanted to come, they're going to have to spend 14 days in. So it is pretty devastating. And I think that, the projections aren't that encouraging for the time it's going to take for international travel to get back. So that's why, we have to find alternative ways of reaching our customers. So digital is very important in that regard. Yeah. I mean, and sort of following on from that point, footfall is really low still, and it's and so that is a real challenge for us, is to try and get the footfall up. What we are finding encouragingly is that people who do come to the store are focused on buying. They're not coming. So the actual spend per customer who's coming to the store is quite good, quite high. So the percentage of sales we're making as against budget is much higher than the percentage of footfall, but still there's a big gap.
Yeah.
Are you seeing a similar experience, Touker?
I think in the city's like a ghost town. So anywhere beyond Covent Garden is a ghost town. But what we are seeing, shopping centres have come back a bit. In the last 2 weeks, we've seen a big increase in shopping centres. I mean, when we opened our stores, we were taking 15-20% of what we normally take. This week, it's grown to about 30-40% what we normally take. So we're in the right direction. Our online is probably up 20%. So that helps a little bit. But overall, on Hawes, we're in a difficult sector, very difficult. My star brand at the moment is Ghost. Ghost online, I've only got one store, thank God. Ghost online is 100% up on the year, doing tremendously well at that level of the market. And it's going from strength to strength. So we've got some good areas, Ghost. We've got some challenging areas in the formal shirt business. I'm hoping that the government will really press to get people back to work. And I'm hoping that as of next week, when the children get back to school, we will see more parents hopefully going back to work and creating the traffic that most retailers, restaurants and alike need.
And Sally, what, just broadening it out a little bit, what are the kind of challenges that you foresee or see your clients facing for luxury businesses that are moving more towards digital offerings?
One of the challenges is probably more for the emerging brands. So less so, because obviously Touker and Dan are working with fairly established brands, Harrods, Hawes and Curtis, for example, both very well established. One of the issues in the digital space is kind of differentiation. So for example, if you look at app icons, for example, everyone's trying to develop a distinctive app icon. But you look at two brands, Hawes and Curtis and Harrods, they've both got an H. Now obviously Harrods, you've used that H at least a very similar H for a number of years. So you're in a good position to get a very distinctive, a recognizable brand, but it's difficult. And it's difficult if you're starting out and you don't have that brand equity. And I've no doubt that when you talk about Ghost being successful, Touker, it's because it has a very loyal following. You understand the customer and you're able to engage with them. And we've seen some clients do very well that they understand the customer and they can enable things like data-driven marketing quite easily. But for a new brand that doesn't have that brand heritage and doesn't have that equity, they need to look at other ways to stand out. It won't be as easy for them to just use their first letter of their brand. They're going to have to be a bit more creative and look at things like collaborations, which we've seen with a number of leading brands have done, but actually, kind of newer brands can do that as well to obtain kind of leverage and brand exposure.
I mean, the big thing I tell people now, and I see lots of people come with investment, is I say all roads lead to marketing. Whatever you're doing, wherever you are, all roads lead to marketing. And different people have different way of marketing, for influencers, for Facebook, for whatever. But unless you've got a marketing proposition, you're not going to succeed.
Well, on that, obviously, I think luxury brands are increasingly, have been for years, using influencers and social media-led strategies to augment their image and to broaden their reach. What do you see as some of the key trends in the social media arena? And I guess what are the things that are worrying you as well?
For me, sorry. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Look, I think it's interesting because there's different ways to skin a cat in marketing. You've got some brands who will not spend money on Facebook or on Instagram, but who will spend on influencers. And I think it's a way of getting that message across. So we see more of video, we see more influencers, we see more lifestyle, and I think people want to be engaged. You've got about 5 seconds to get someone's attention, and that 5 seconds is the key. And I think what we're finding is that having something to talk about new means that you can communicate with your customer more often. But if you've got the same message, you cannot communicate with a customer more than once or twice. Otherwise, they'll just unsubscribe. So content, something new to talk about, think out the box, think crazy ideas that will get people's attention.
I like that. And Dan, Harrods, I guess in many ways, has for years been an influencer in the sense of it chooses and curates who gets into its store and onto its platform, and has been a great supporter of many upcoming brands. Do you actually engage with influencers?
Do we? Yeah, as an organization, we do. I think it's a necessary part of modern marketing. We do it both focused on a particular brand, sort of in collaboration with one of the brands in the store, and we do our own influence as well. My sense, although I don't have much of a point of comparison, is that we probably do that maybe a little bit less than some other comparable retailers. As Touker said, that we have to be engaged across all forms of advertising and marketing. So we're widely across social media, but certainly influence is part of that. But you have to be, very careful in selecting which influencers you want to partner with. They have to be people who are sending the right message and appeal to our customers. And I think that's, that there's a lot of homework to be done in finding the right sort of influencers to suit your brands.
And I guess as general counsel and data protection officer and custodian of the Harrods brand in some respects and the portfolio, do you, what kind of things are worrying you about that approach with influencers and partnering up with people?
I mean, I haven't, to be fair, there hasn't been any massive problems that have come across my desk. We haven't had, I suppose the risk could be, an influencer is involved in some sort of public problem or something like that, and that might sort of denigrate your brand. But as I say, I think we've chosen well, and there haven't been any brand problems from my perspective that have come across my desk. I mean,
the other question really is, every company's biggest asset is their data, and it's how you use your data to communicate with your customers. I mean, in Dan's case, you've got a much wider selection of customers with different appeals.
Yeah.
Whereas with my brand, we really look at the data. Who are the buyers that buy at full price? Who are the buyers that wait for the sale? Who are the buyers that buy it more often? Who buys our fashion shirts? Who are the ones who will buy X suits a year? How do we communicate with our customers? Recently, I've been sending out my own emails to our customers, thanking them for their support during difficult times. So there is that way of using your data, because in my view, next to your brand, your biggest asset is your data. And just, of course.
Well, that's very interesting. That is definitely something I wanted to come on to. And actually, Touker, I did get a letter in the post from you just the other day, actually, inviting me to purchase the product. So,
right.
So thank you for that. I did really
that was personalized, of course.
I know. It was signed by you. So I obviously, I found that, I did enjoy that. Thank you. And it's really helpful. Actually, it's one of the things I wanted to ask. You've answered is actually you're really harnessing data to make it work and to understand your customers and put them into different baskets and serve up to them either content or offerings that are relevant to them, which so clearly understanding and utilizing data is right at the apex for you. Is that a similar for Harrods?
Absolutely. I mean, Touker is absolutely right. Data is everything. We've had a brand loyalty scheme that's been very successful and I've been working for many years. So we already have a lot of useful data. I referred also to the personal shopping, so that's very useful. I would also add that sort of technology is constantly getting better. The computer programs, the way in which you can analyze data both specifically and on an anonymized basis. And in fact, we've got a project going on at the moment, because what I think inevitably happens in large organizations is data appears in different parts of the organization and doesn't always get pooled. And so we've got, excuse me, a project called, which is sort of geared towards having a single view of the customer. So we're pooling all of the data to allow us to understand the data and our customers better in order to better to serve their needs and wants.
And I guess, I mentioned, I think you are the data protection officer. So
yeah,
how do you adapt to managing the risks associated with data? And what are you doing to kind of ensure you're best protecting it?
I mean, we obviously in the run up to GDPR in 2018, we did a massive overhaul of all our data protection and data security measures. But it's not just a one-off project. We then have to have rigorous policies and practices in place to constantly make sure that the data is being protected and is secure. I mean, I don't know what it's like for Touker's business, but the budget that is put towards these tasks now compared to 10 years ago is just a completely different thing. And also I think I mentioned earlier, anonymization. You anonymize data as much as you can. You don't keep data any longer than you need it. However, and also you ensure you've got consent from your customers. And so I think, and also I would say another very, very important thing is transparency. Your customers deserve and should be told what you're doing with their data, and if they're not comfortable with that, then they should, they can make that clear. But so I think GDPR has, it came at a good time, because I think a lot of businesses were becoming more digital and were looking at ways of processing data for marketing purposes. So it keeps you honest.
Yeah. And Touker, obviously a very experienced investor in multiple different businesses. I know you mentioned a couple, but your business is actually across a number of sectors, and of course we all know you as a dragon. Do you think that COVID in particular has accelerated or changed the way that digitally focused businesses are going to evolve and develop, and how and when they might take on investment? I mean, what type of impact do you foresee?
I think for a lot of small businesses, online investment is continuous. You never stop developing new things on your website, marketing, that never stops. What I'm finding is the fact that there are certain sectors that I'm in that are what I call COVID proof. A baby is COVID proof. Dogs is COVID proof. Beauty. Well, I think certain parts of beauty, I think the actual, what I call the makeup side is taking a hit, but things like serums for the face and cleansing and looking after yourself, health, and of course you've got brands like Suleyman who are COVID, all leisure wear. I'm sure our friend Mike Cashie's done pretty well out of this at the moment, out of anything to do with leisure wear, sportswear, keeping fit. And of course, on the other hand, the food sector's done very well online, being the supermarkets. So there has been some winners. And I think more and more companies are putting a bigger budget to their online businesses.
Well, yeah, if they've got the money.
Yeah, but I think in certain cases, there's a lot of money out there for investments. If you've got a good proposition and you've got a good story and you're in the right sector, I think there's money out there. Unfortunately, at the moment, what I'm finding is everything's terribly overvalued. People see, this is worth $1 billion, and I'm a startup, and why am I worth 10 million, and that's pre-revenue. So I think it's a crazy situation. I mean, I had one situation where I invested in an online bike market called Bike Soup. And 18 months ago, I said, I'm not invested anymore. I'll put it into hibernation. 10 weeks ago, I said, let's relaunch Bike Soup. It's now #1 on Google if you want to buy and sell a second-hand bike. Just the timing, that's timing. So I'm putting in a lot more money into that platform because of what COVID's done to cycling.
Yeah.
So,
and do you think that the internet is allowing startups to flourish? Does it provide a level playing field? Because customers, I don't know, they can't always differentiate. I mean, clearly the well-known businesses that you both either own or represent are well known, but actually sometimes you can't tell with a website how large the organization is. No. And I do a lot of diligence, but I don't know if other people do. But do you think do you think you guys have a head start because obviously you have money behind you, or not?
Can I tell you, there's never been a better time to start a business. You can quite easily have a product, you photograph it, you go on Shopify, and with a few £1,000s, you're in business. And there are a lot of what I call disruptors. You take some of these cosmetic disruptors who disrupt the market. There's a company called Ordinary who disrupted the cosmetics world. And out of nowhere, they've sold half of their business to a leading cosmetic brand for a lot of money. So there's opportunity to disrupt big brands. Big brands are lazy. Big brands take a long time to develop product. So if you are a new business, you're agile, you're quick, you're innovative, and you're fast, you're going to succeed.
I think that's right. I think it's probably took it a little bit harder, in my experience, for luxury brands to hit the ground running and get a decent market share. And in fact, even during sort of lockdown, we're noticing the big established luxury players seem to be doing a bit better than some of the smaller brands that we sell. So
Right.
I suspect in luxury it would be, I totally hear what you're saying, but I think it'd be quite a challenge to make a mark right now.
Yeah, no, I agree in luxury. I'm talking about not in clothing really, but more in the sort of what I call the beauty area, which is quite easy to enter. And you've got some smaller brands. Just, I wouldn't say that they've become luxury brands, but they're disruptors. And I think you know, luxury brands have got to spend a lot more money on R&D, on PR, on advertising, and whatever. Whereas some small brand can come along with similar formulas at a fraction of the cost and just disrupt the market.
Yeah.
Okay. Dan, you touched before on your partnership with Farfetch, and obviously the timing of that was very fortuitous in some respect. I guess, are you happy to provide a little bit more around, you know, what you hope to achieve and any learnings from that experience that you can share at all?
Yeah, no problem at all, Lewis. I mean, first of all, I think we before we partnered with Farfetch, we had our own platform which we built for us, and which we were maintaining and upgrading as we needed to. But it became apparent that you effectively will need to re-platform every 5 or so years. And in fact, it was instead of re-platforming, we realized that a growing awareness that ultimately to operate a online platform at the level that Harrods needs to do it, you need to really have a lot of technological expertise. And our expertise is in retail, and I think we recognize that. And then we looked who we could partner with, and Farfetch were, first of all, they are a technology business in that you know they develop their own platform, they build it, they maintain it, and also they are operating a luxury at the luxury end of the sector. So they were a really good partner for us. What it means is by Farfetch taking care of all the technological side of things and the development and the maintenance, we get to focus on digital retailing, and that is what we need to do and what we're getting better at. And also one of the other opportunities given to us by Farfetch is we can operate what we call a brand direct model. That is, so instead of all the products being brought into Harrods warehouse, as it were, and then sent out as people order online, we will be able to have brands fulfill those orders directly from their own depots, wherever they may be. So you have a situation where a customer who buys an item from brand X who is based in China, that can be fulfilled by brand X from their depot in China. And so you get sort of synergies like that. That also allows the brands to keep more control, because they're effectively integrating with our website, and they control the products and the price and the location where those products will be delivered from. So it helps us. So partnering with someone with the credibility of Farfetch and with that business model I've just described helps us to persuade luxury brands that they can sell online via Harrods, which is a challenge, because the trend is towards luxury brands wanting to do their own on digital sales. So it's important for us to be credible and show expertise in the way we can do that to persuade those brands to remain or to join Harrods.com.
Thank you, Dan. I mean, it's interesting because you talk about, obviously, it was the technical expertise that drove you to that. And few businesses, even a business of your size, doesn't necessarily have the resources or the expertise or the skills to develop all of that in-house. So do you think these partnerships are critical for the success for luxury businesses online?
I think they are, and I think we're certainly very happy with the decision we made. And I think I didn't sort of talk too much about it, but there's a massive cost towards trying to do it yourself as well. And it's a cost it's a bottomless pit, really, because you're the cost of re-platforming, then you're constantly doing the cost of innovating and maintaining. And then the platform will reach end of life within 5 years. I mean, the pace of technology is so quick that you do need that expertise, and if you're not careful, you will be spending a vast amount of money constantly playing catch up, which is better, therefore, from our perspective, to partner with an organization that has as within its DNA, the constant upgrading of its platform and the constant evolution and development of that platform.
And your customers are international. So does this provide you with, do you have foreign language versions of your website?
We haven't got that yet, but it's something that we're looking at. And one of the things that we're focusing on is China, because the Chinese market is so huge, and a lot of the growth in luxury is expected to come from China. But we are looking to create a sort of bespoke solution for China, one of which will be having the actual website based within the Chinese territory. So because that increases performance of the website, and also, within China, customers tend to purchase using their mobile phones, and within apps, it's a different, they've got to another level when it comes to digital purchasing. So we are going to have to adapt to provide a digital solution for China that appeals to the customer, because it's, as Touker's been saying, you have to give customers what they want. You have to understand your customers and deliver them what they want.
And Sally, I know you've advised lots of businesses on China and brand-related issues into China. Do you have any comments to make at this juncture?
I would say, China is a challenging jurisdiction from a, particularly from an IP perspective, and it's just about engaging early. But it's like all of these things. I think actually, do your investigations, and if you're looking at entering that market in say 2 to 3 years, actually address it now. I think what's interesting in what Dan's saying and Touker's saying, all this, it's clear that, agility is important, collaboration's important. And in China, we've seen people collaborate with the wrong people. Due diligence, is really, really important. It sounds like, there's been a fantastic kind of collaboration between Harrods and Farfetch, but sometimes things don't work out quite so well. And I think that, the due diligence aspect for China, for anywhere else, is really important.
Yeah.
And Touker, on these points, are you developing your website and your e-commerce in-house, or are you also partnering with third parties?
We have our own platform, so it's in-house. So it's a continuous expenditure of keeping up with the Joneses, and I think for us, because I've got many brands on the same platform, it pays. So, I've got probably 10 brands on one platform. And for us, we have a budget put in place for that. And we're probably, for the next 6 months, a whole list of things to do to upgrade our website. It's a continuous situation. If I had to do it all over again, would I partner up one of the big providers of platforms? Perhaps. Unfortunately, I am where I am. It would be too expensive for me to go backwards. But at the end of the day, each brand is different. I mean, unfortunately, Harrods has a massive job. They've got hundreds of brands, so their solution is much more complicated. Whereas if you've got a singular brand, it's much more easier. However, even with singular brands, you've got to make those websites talk to people internationally, in international currencies, in international deliveries. Delivery costs have gone through the roof internationally in the last month, tripled and quadrupled. If you want to send a parcel to China, it was, let's say, $10, now $60. If you want to send something to the States, it used to be whatever it was, it's now doubled. So you need to keep up with that technology, with all the costs that relate to an online proposition. And everybody thought, oh, it's easy to go online, it's cheap, but it's not. It's actually very expensive to have a proper online offer.
That seems like a kind of terrible note to bring matters to a close on that. But I think it does highlight the importance of e-commerce and that continuing need to invest in e-commerce. There was loads more content I wanted to discuss, but I think we've had an excellent conversation today. And I think we've shown that clearly e-commerce has been impacting on the luxury sector for many years before COVID. But COVID and its impact on bricks and mortar, which we've discussed, on wholesale and on demands and the changing demands, has, I think, been clearly from this discussion shown has been a catalyst pushing luxury businesses into further developing, refining, considering their online and omnichannel strategies. We've discussed today a number of the challenges and opportunities that are facing luxury businesses. And clearly, online channels are taking more and more time and more investment for luxury businesses. And we've heard how some luxury businesses can do digital themselves, and some are partnering with established e-retailers to really give themselves a boost and continue to personalize their digital marketing. And we've heard how Harrods in particular are looking to transfer that same standard of care and personalization from store to digital. So I would really love, grateful to our panelists today for all of their insights. And I'd like to thank all of you for joining us. And of course, if you do have any questions and you see any of us on the networking tool, then please do feel free to reach out to us. Thank you all very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, bye-bye.